Cringy wedding stories. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Let's see. Long ago, I worked at a banquet hall and witnessed a fully NASCAR themed wedding. During the reception, they played the audio of the proposal going out over the PA at the track. It was fully unintelligible. Room. That's funny. Other highlights were the owner locking himself in his office to avoid the bride's father because he was threatening him to haggle on the costs. In the end, we had to call the police because the bride in gown climbed over the bar to steal more sweet MGD after we had closed the taps and the event was over. Oh wow. I'm in the wedding industry. I've been to over 3,000 weddings. Wow. The singing your vows thing is never ever going to work out like you think it will. Never sing your vows. Never attempt to sing any part of your wedding. It will not go as you visualized it. A wedding day is not a good time for surprises. Don't surprise your bride with an unexpected part of the ceremony. Don't surprise your mum by the wedding itself. True story. The bride told her mum she was going to an engagement dinner. Wow. The only exception to this rule is if you give the bride a surprise addition to her ring, grandma's diamond, a ring made from her parents' rings, etc. Jokes about sex later are never funny. They make people uncomfortable and it makes you look like an adolescent. There will always be crickets after you make the joke. If you're going to be late, communicate that to everyone somehow. Have your significant other or your parents or someone tell everyone you will be late. The staff needs to know, especially. If you forget the rings, don't stress it. It's a funny story. If you forget your vows, wing it as best you can. Just don't sing. Ask the officiant for help for last minute vows. Strong. Finally, don't get drunk and be an arse. You don't want to be that guy. Plus, if you are drunk, you won't be able to have sex later. Oh, this is funny. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. It's a cult. Dating is only allowed to find a marriage partner and was very monitored to ensure no premarital touching occurred. Crikey. Worst wedding was a small ceremony. It was literally her family, his family, and my family in her grandma's living room. Oh my. What made it the worst was the XXS kiss at the end. The groom wanted the bride inside his mouth hardcore. There was tongue in and out everywhere, saliva and hot breathing. What? Complete with first date excited groping. Oh my. Nobody knew where to look for 5 minutes. Oh my god, that would be so awkward. At my cousin's wedding, they did the thing where the groom removes the bride's garter and tosses it to all the single guys. I guess none of the guys wanted to be next to be married because once the groom tossed the garter, no one grabbed it. It just landed on the ground a few feet in front of a crowd of motionless guys. The groom tossed the garter 3 times before one guy half-heartedly picked it off the ground. Oh, that was good. The bride wouldn't look at any of those guys for the rest of the night. Hilarious. I was a photographer for a wedding where the bride was marrying a man with 2 kids from a previous relationship. Okay, here we go. I was in the bridal suite when the bridal party was getting ready and all of the bridesmaids had matching silk robes. The flower girl, groom's daughter, was there too. They asked me to take a group photo of the bridal party and one of the women in the silk robe was standing awkwardly to the side. I thought she was just shy or something, so I waved her into the photo and the room got dead silent and the bride was like, oh no, we don't want her in the photos, and glared at me like I should have known that. Oh boy. Apparently, she was the groom's ex-wife and was there to take care of the flower girl. But why did you give her a matching bridesmaid robe? Oh, crikey. I wanted to crawl in a hole and die. That sounds painful. These are good so far. My uncle not only brought up his daughter's ex-boyfriend in his speech, but talked about their toxic relationship for a solid 5 minutes. I highly recommend preparing a speech before talking in front of a room full of people. Not the couple. The pastor kept saying, "Our Heavenly Father, Daddy God." while marrying them. Edit, thanks for the gold. For context, it was a military wedding. It was just the couple and the pastor. It was live streamed on Twitch, and the pastor was probably about 25. It was in Hawaii. He was wearing flip-flops and a lei made of fake flowers. There you go. Oh, let's see. Groom changed who his best man was and didn't tell the original best man until the start of the ceremony. Bride and groom asked a guest to bartend the reception at the reception. Groom dirty danced with his stepmom, full hands on ass. Oh my. Bride and groom hauled their wedding party up to a choreographed dance to Meatloaf's Paradise by the Dashboard Lights, but didn't give them any pre-warning or teach them the dance. That song is 8.5 minutes long. Wedding was at a scenic boarding school campus during the summer. Guests were told dormitories were complimentary to stay in. Guests were not told there would be no bedding provided or AC in the building. Groom later emailed everyone who stayed in the dorm asking for money. Same bride and groom chose another friend's wedding reception as the right setting to yell at a third pair of mutual friends for not including them in their wedding party, requiring every attendee to bring a date because she didn't want sad, lonely people on her day. Wow. Not my friends, luckily, but pretended to be a friend's date because she really wanted to see her cousin get married. At the reception, the groom and his groomsmen sung a god-awful a cappella version of Stand By Me. The worst part was, he wasn't even singing it to his wife. He was singing it to his mum. Oh, crikey. Oh, darling, darling, stand by me. Chinese weddings, man. These have been great. Dated a girl in my 20s and went to her friend's wedding in upstate New York. In the middle of the service, the minister's cell phone rang. He answered. It was God. God wanted to talk to the groom. Conversation lasted a couple of minutes, then the ceremony continued. Whoa. The minister, or pastor, used to date the bride and gushed about how wonderful she was. Told the groom if he ever died not to worry, he'd take care of her. I was shell-shocked. Whoa. Too much. I so wished I could think of a reason to ask the couple for a copy of the video of their wedding, but couldn't quite find a legit one. I wasn't a guest, I was working the wedding. The bride got drunk and sat on some other dude's lap for 2 hours and flirted with him while the groom sat by himself at the head table with a defeated look on his face. Wow, that's shocking. Not wedding, but engagement ceremony. They reenacted a scene from an old romantic film about two lovers in the 1800s in front of like 300 people. Oh my. I worked as a wedding videographer. This is the only bridezilla I encountered in 10 years. This girl was so self-centered, she kept everyone waiting at her outdoor ceremony for more than an hour while she was pampered in the makeup chair. While she's having them redo this and touch up that, she's sort of making up her wedding vows in a very relaxed, casual manner, completely inappropriate for the 100 people sweating under full summer sun waiting on her. Her aunt came in and very gently reminded her people were waiting on her and that it's been more than an hour, and she threw a tantrum screaming, "I feel like everyone's forgetting this is my day." Eventually she comes out. Vows are lame and borderline incoherent, and one of the groomsmen, sweltering undercoat and vest and shirt and sun, passes out from heat exhaustion. Whoa, that's rough. The officiant whispers to ask the couple if they should stop and make sure he's okay, and she goes, "Nah, he's just being dramatic, keep going." As the couple is headed back up the aisle, an ambulance can be seen arriving to tend to the poor overheated groomsmen. Oh my god, that's crazy. This was Mauricio, the bride's family. One of my first classmates to get married. We were 19. Had a small reception, mostly family and friends from high school. Nothing wrong with that. They decided to auction off the garter belt, and whoever won took it off the bride. Most of us were poor college students, so the only people bidding were her dad and uncles. It was super uncomfortable. Edit, I did not expect this reaction. So to answer the most common question, the bride's very drunk dad won to the tune of $500 plus, money grabbed by the couple to help with honeymoon expenses. This was not Alabama, North Dakota, and this was not the normal garter tradition by any means, just a particularly cringeworthy version of an already cringy tradition. They sang their vows to each other. Neither had a singing voice. Oh my. Vows were generally bat crazy, like submissive in the bedroom and not asking about where she was going. The auto-tune microphones were a terrible idea. Their vow songs shared a chorus and it was awful, and they expected the guests to sing along with the chorus. The vows singing lasted 20 minutes. Pure cringe. That sounds awful. It's a tie between my sister breaking her knee, seriously, at her own wedding, dancing to the Cotton Eye Joe, and my stepsister having her reception at an honest-to-God truck stop while 6 months pregnant. Oh, crikey. In her defence, the food was good, but wow, was it weird walking through a gas station in formal wear. At the beginning of the reception, we all had to stand up and sing the national anthem. To be clear, this was in another country I'd never been to a wedding in before, so I thought, okay, maybe this is just tradition I've never heard of before here. Then I told this to other people and they were all like, no, that's just really weird. Also, at that wedding, the father of the groom ended his speech with what I'm sure he thought was an amazing joke on how it's easier to build a bridge to Hawaii than to understand what a woman is thinking. It would have been awkward enough had the man not also been standing between his ex and current wife as he was delivering it. Oh, crikey. Serve macaroni and cheese only to the bridal party. Everyone else got mashed potatoes. I was a hostess, so I got macaroni and cheese. After tasting it, there was no way in hell they would have broken the bank preparing enough for everyone. It was just really tacky because people were asking for it, and I told them I didn't know much about it, I am just following directions. I went to a wedding with my ex a few years back. It was one of his fraternity brother's weddings, and apparently the bride's parents were ridiculously conservative. So conservative that they have super edited versions of every song the DJ played, including bleeping out the word shots from Shots by laughing my ass off. Oh my. Also, it was a dry wedding, so this rendition of the song was almost too on the nose. Oh wow. Invite all their Facebook friends and expect 700 people, and like less than 100 show up. Oh. When I was at a wedding of my parents' friends, the groom tried to throw a decently sized piece of cake at the bride, who moved out of the way. The cake ended up hitting my 76-year-old grandma. Awkward. We all had a good laugh, but we were all cringing at the same time at the missed cake attempt. Oh, I have two. The bride decided to sing as she walked down the aisle. She was not a particularly talented singer, and she was singing over a Carrie Underwood song so we could all hear the original vocal track. She finished walking about halfway through the song and then stood there and sang the rest of the song at the groom, and all we could do was sit there and watch. Wow. Different wedding. They began the wedding with the groom playing an out-of-tune guitar and singing to the bride. They were sitting on chairs in front of everyone, legit 400 people, and the bride was clearly uncomfortable, which made everyone else uncomfortable. Oh. That wedding also included a foot washing ceremony. What? And when the bride put her shoes back on, she tripped on her dress and fell flat on her face. They hadn't done the vows yet, and the ceremony stopped for 20 minutes to deal with the nosebleed she gave herself. Oh my, that sounds awful. Not the bride and groom, but the bride's father. I was the best man. They married young after she fell pregnant. It wasn't planned, but they clearly loved each other, and it was the right thing for them to do in their eyes, both Christian. Anyway, come the wedding day, I'm sat next to the bride's father at the reception, and I can see he's looking at his prepared speech repeatedly. I can see phrases like not ideal, would have preferred not to welcome you into the family in these circumstances, etc. Just before the groom gets up to give a speech, the bride's father excuses himself to nip to the loo, leaving his speech behind. I'm not ashamed to say I swiped it and then pleaded ignorance when he returned. In the end, he stood up and muttered a few words about love and then sat down. I never told the groom, and I'm happy to say they're still happily married 20 years later. What a man. Good work. Update, blimey, that blew up. I never expected this to be noticed, but thank you for all the very kind comments and awards. Bride shows up almost 2 hours late to her own wedding. Southern California in an open field, no water, no shade. She shows up and wants to get married in her yoga outfit. The groom shut it down, and when she refused to change her clothes, the groom decided to leave her looking stupid, and they never got married. Oh wow. Edit, I spoke with my uncle and it turns out he had speculation that his fiancée was sleeping with her personal trainer. Oh. When she showed up in a yoga outfit, it was all he needed to call off the wedding. Whoa. She ended up married to a personal trainer and divorced again. The ceremony also was the name reveal. They changed their last name because they didn't want to be stuck to their heritage and didn't want anything to hold them back. Turns out they changed their name thinking they could erase their mountains of debt or at least hide from it. Turns out you can't live under two legal identities. My mum and mother-in-law insisted on doing a stuggy, a bit of theatre often to mock the bride and groom by showing embarrassing pictures from their childhood. Cringeworthy all by itself, but we explicitly asked them not to and they went against our wishes. So when they performed their stuggy, everyone was annoyed and embarrassed. Oh, not good. When we finally made it through that ordeal, we wanted the party to resume, but my mother-in-law did another stuggy and we were about ready to kill her. Instead of throwing rice or confetti or sprinkles or anything like that, the bride and groom asked their friends to save all their empty jewel pods and throw those as they walked down the aisle. The friends obliged. Edit it, I posted a screenshot of a friend's Snapchat from the wedding on Trashy a while ago. This is my dad's story. He went to his friend's daughter's wedding reception. Before coming in, the bride and groom had this whole scene of them looking for each other. The guests watched it on a giant screen inside. Update, I asked my dad, it was live streamed. They then entered through opposite entrances, met in the middle and did a little dance with their friends. They then had their first dance. Oh wow. So cringy. Not the groom and bride's fault, but the pastor marrying them talked about his marriage and his kids for 20 minutes. He was obviously going for something of showing what marriage will be like. But he full up was talking about how his daughter, Kelsey, learned to walk this way, and his other daughter's first words were this and that he and his wife make love throughout the house because that's what you do when in love, etc. Bride and groom had to stand there holding hands for 20 minutes right in front of him as the other 150 of us had to listen about his sex life and his kids. Oh, that's so awkward. So awkward. The groom sang his vows. I honestly had to stare at the floor and slow breathe to not laugh and get through it. Bride takes 3 hours to appear. After the ceremony, she and her spouse go up in an air balloon. The marriage did not last a year. I know a guy who recently made his lackeys, friends, compete to be his best man. Most pretentious thing I have ever seen. Watching them grovel was so upsetting to me. I was at a wedding when I was 8, and instead of the bride and groom getting up to make their speech thanking everyone, they had done like an award show. So the DJ opened up an envelope, announced their names, they were handed an award statue, a Barbie and a Ken doll, and proceeded to thank everyone in the form of an award speech. In the right hands, it would have been funny, but the bride and groom are incredibly shy by nature, so it was just awkward. I'm in my 30s now, and I still remember this. My wife and I don't dance, so we hadn't danced together before our wedding dance. Loved it, but it was cringeworthy. I used to videotape weddings, so I've seen it all. This one couple from New Jersey with a spitting image of Snooki and JWoww's ex-husband Roger. They were super into appearances and very over-the-top gaudy. During their church ceremony, they had their very white 60-year-old uncle with Native American feathers tied into his hair stand up and chant around the church, giving what can only assume was some kind of blessing. It was so weird and out of place. I assumed they wanted to seem deep during their ceremony. They mixed coloured sand together in a vase too. A younger couple at a wedding I attended thought it was a really good idea to get on the husband's sport bike with cans and dangling off the back of it after drinking during the celebration. He popped the clutch and was attempting to do a burnout with her on the back. Things got caught in the chain, the bike bucked both of them off, and they spent their honeymoon recovering in the ICU. Oh God, not good. Flew away in a helicopter at the end, but there were only appetizers for food. I went to a potluck wedding. The attendees kept all the food in their hot cars while at church. Then when we moved to the event hall, they brought it all to be served. Potato and macaroni salad after being in a hot car for an hour. Delicious. Those were the high-end dishes. Some attendees brought 2 litres of soda or bags of chips. At this same wedding, they also had a dollar dance. Everyone lines up and pays for the chance to dance with the bride. That's weird. They pinned dollars on her dress. They ran out of pins, so she started stuffing dollar bills into her bra. Oh God, awful. For some reason, after the bride and groom kissed at a wedding I was at, the groom, a big douche to begin with, took a pair of hillbilly teeth out of his mouth and screamed, "I did it again, boys." What? I felt so sorry for the bride. I don't know what she ever saw in that guy. They are now divorced. Edit. Hillbilly teeth are those fake inserts that look super nasty you get from a party or gag store. I will also clarify, he was belligerent drunk, barely able to stand, and no one, still to this day, knows what he meant when he screamed, "We did it again, boys." So weird. I don't think he knew either. I hope this clears some stuff up for you all. Not the bride and groom, but my husband's cousin has a signature wedding move. About halfway through the reception, he takes over the band/DJ mic and sings this rocking 60s pop song. I forget which one, but you'd know it. He really plays it up, bells it out. It's his moment in the spotlight and everyone loves it. Except in my husband's family, there's like 60 cousins, so I've seen this move in dozens of weddings over the years. The first time it felt spontaneous and fun, but now I cringe as he heads up for the mic yet again. I was forced to sit there and had to watch the bride and groom take pictures in poses that were from Bollywood movies for 2 hours.